so Unit 8-1, Quadratic Equations Vocabulary. So everything that we're going to learn this unit is all going to be about U-shaped graphs. So we've done linear, right? Straight lines. We've done exponential. Does everybody remember what exponential looked like? It was like this. If you had your graph and your exponential looked like this. Remember those? Okay, where it gets really, really close to this but doesn't actually touch it. Remember all that? Okay, so you had your exponentials. And then now we're going to have our unit over quadratic graphs, which are U-shaped graphs. So there's a fancy word for U-shaped graph. Does anybody know what that fancy word is? Besides quadratic. Starts with a P. And it's called parabola. Parabola. Okay, parabola. So parabola is just that U-shaped graph. I'm sure it has some fancy definition, but for you guys, parabola just means that U-shaped graph. Either like these two. Either up like this or down like that one. Okay, on the board. You can either open up or open down. No matter what, it's still a parabola if it looks like a U. Okay? Questions? All right, so today, because we have 10, 11, 12, I can't remember how many days of notes, it's super important that you know the vocabulary that we're going to be using. So all we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the vocabulary words that you probably haven't heard of before. Like parabola is brand new. You've never heard of that. That's just what the shape is called on the graph. Okay? So our first vocabulary word is vertex. All right? Vertex is going to be your highest. You're going to have to write kind of small on these. Highest or lowest point. Okay, so it's either the highest point or the lowest point. Okay, so I want you to imagine this graph right here, this U-shaped graph, having arrows. Are arrows a point? No. Arrows go on forever. They're not a point. So my highest point would be a graph that looks like this. And my highest point would be at the top. My lowest point, go ahead and draw these, would be a graph that looks like this. And my lowest point would be at the bottom. Okay, so on your graph over here, okay, we're going to label it. So it's either your highest or your lowest point. So this one is my lowest point. It's either one or the other. You can't have a high and a low point. Okay, so it's one or the other. This is a low point. And I'm going to draw an arrow and label it vertex. Vertex. Okay, definition number 2 are roots. Okay, roots mean x-intercepts. Okay, what does AKA mean? AKA means as known as, also known as, okay? So your x-intercept, these roots are also known as. Now, this is my trick. This is not a real math word, okay? Rocks. We've talked about rocks, okay? That's not a real math word. But look up here on the board. You guys know how I have rocks up here? Okay, what's the R stand for? Root. What's the O stand for? Zeros. The X's. X-intercept. And what's my S? Solutions. Okay, so rocks is not a real math word, okay? Rocks is just to help you remember the real math words, and my real math words are roots, zeros, x-intercepts, and solutions. Those 4 words are your answer words. Rocks is not an answer, okay? It's to help you find. Just like I say, Hoy bucks is not your answer to a problem. It's to help you find the answer. Rocks is not an answer. It's to help you find the answer, okay? So all of these words, these 4 words, roots, zeros, x-intercepts, solutions, they all mean the same thing. And what do they all mean? X-intercept. So today it could say, what are your roots? Well, that just means what are your x-intercepts. It could say, what are your zeros? Zeros mean x-intercepts. It could say, what are your solutions? What do those mean? X-intercepts. And they all are found in the exact same place. Where does it cross the x-axis? Okay, so those dots. Draw your dots where they cross the x-axis, and I want you to label it roots. Does everybody understand that they mean the same thing? And that rocks is not a real math word, but it helps you remember the real math words. Roots, zeros, x-intercepts, solutions. Okay, another new one is your axis of symmetry. It can also be called line of symmetry. Okay, so axis of symmetry and line of symmetry are the exact same thing. So, over spring break, let me tell you this story because maybe it'll help you remember. Over spring break, this is legit. We were looking for entertainment centers. Okay, does everybody know what an entertainment center is? It's like that little shelf or whatever that either goes like under your TV, or it can be like a really big one that like goes around the TV. You know what I mean? Entertainment centers. Well, we were looking for like just like the one that goes under the TV, like a kind of like a tabletop that would go under the TV. Kind of put your like DVDs in or your cable box. Put the cable box on. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, so we were looking for one of those. And so we were both shopping. Me and my husband were both shopping online, and he kept showing me entertainment centers. And I guess I was not very clear on what I wanted because I didn't like any of the ones that he kept showing me, obviously, right? And so I told him, if you guys don't know, I'm very OCD. Do you know what OCD is? Where you're very organized in everything that you do, and everything has to be perfect. And so I'm very OCD, and I told him I want it to be symmetrical. Okay? Symmetrical means it's the same on both sides. So anything in my house, if I have like a mirror on one side of the wall, I need to have a mirror on the other side of the wall. I want it to be the same. Okay? Do you have copies today? I do not. Thank you for asking though. Okay. Okay, so anything in my house is symmetrical. It's the same on both sides. If I have a candle on one side of the mantle, I have a candle on the other side of the mantle. And so I told him I want it to be symmetrical. So on this entertainment center, you know, sometimes it will have the glass doors that open up and you can put stuff in the shelves, or maybe it'll have a drawer. And I told him, I said, if there's a glass door on the one side, instead of a glass door on the other side. I don't want to look at my TV and something be different on this in my peripheral vision, right? So I told him I want something symmetrical. So what does symmetrical mean? Same on both sides. Okay? So axis of symmetry. Symmetry means symmetrical. Same on both sides. So it's a line that's going to make my graph the same on both sides. It's going to make my U the same on both sides. So it's going to go straight through the middle of the U. Okay? It's not going to go through the middle of the graph. It's going to go middle of the U. So if I want to draw a line of symmetry or an axis of symmetry, it's going to go right through the middle of the U. So that dashed line right there is my axis of symmetry. If I was to fold the U, if I was to take my paper and fold it down this dashed line, would it be the same on both sides? You guys know when you used to like learn how to cut a heart out of paper? Fold the paper in half, and then you would make the heart the exact same on both sides and cut it. Okay, a half heart, and then you open it up and make a full heart. Same thing. Okay, if I was to fold it down this dashed line, would it be the same on both sides? Okay, so an axis of symmetry, the definition is a vertical. Okay, so a vertical line, what's vertical? Which way? Up and down. Up and down. So a vertical line that divides the graph symmetrically. Symmetrically. Okay, that's an S. Alright, so it's a graph that divides, or a vertical line that divides the graph symmetrically. It's the exact same thing on both sides. It's symmetrical. So, draw an arrow to your dashed line, and we're going to label it axis of symmetry. Okay, the next two are easy ones. All right. So my maximum vertex, what's the vertex mean? Highest or lowest point. So my maximum vertex, do you think it's going to be the highest point or the lowest point? Highest. So I'm going to write highest point. And I'm going to draw a picture. Highest point. That's my U shape with my dot at the top. Minimum would be the what? Lowest point. And I'm going to draw a U with the dot on the bottom, my vertex on the bottom. Okay, questions. So these are all your new words. All right. All right, it says using the picture above, determine the following. My roots. Well, what does roots mean? X-intercepts. So where are my x-intercepts? -2 and +2. Okay, but we're going to write them as ordered pairs. -2 and +2. 0. Because it's x-intercepts, your numbers goes in the x spot of the ordered pair. Everybody knows that an ordered pair is x comma y, right? Okay, everybody knows an ordered pair is x comma y. Because I'm talking about x-intercepts, my numbers go in the x spot of that ordered pair. Okay, look at the y-intercept. Okay, where does it cross the y-axis? At -4, because it's the y-intercept. My -4 goes in the y spot. What goes in the x spot? 0. Okay, does this graph open up or does it open down? Okay, remember how we drew our arrows on the end? Our arrows are going up, so this graph opens up. Is this a maximum or a minimum vertex? Well, is my vertex at the top or the bottom? The bottom. Okay, does everybody see how my vertex is at the bottom? So this would be a minimum. Minimum. And then what is my vertex coordinate? Well, here we already know where it's at because we drew our arrow to it. And this coordinate is 0, -4. Okay, axis of symmetry. It's super important that you're listening to this. Okay. What type of line is my axis of symmetry? It's a straight vertical line. Okay. I can't just say my axis of symmetry is just a random number. Okay, that doesn't tell me where it's at. I need to know, because it's a line on a graph, it's got to have an equation because it's a line on a graph. Okay, so how do I write these an equation of a vertical line? Well, what do I use to help me write an equation of a vertical line? Bucks. Yes. Okay, so bucks. How do I write an equation for a vertical line? Look at bucks up here, huh? X equals a number. Okay. So I know it's got to be x equals a number. Now look at this hint I'm going to show you. Look at the word axis. Everybody see axis? Okay. It's got a what in it? X. And then what's the word after x? Is. Okay. So anytime you have the axis of symmetry and you're writing the answer, you have to write x is a number. X equals a number. Okay, and where does my axis of symmetry cross the x-axis? It crosses at the, oh, sorry. Here's my axis of symmetry. Okay, right? The dashed line. And it's going through the what number line, number on the number line on the x-axis? 0. So it's x equals 0. Questions? Yes? No. If you flip it over to the back, they're not on the x, the y-intercept. Okay, they're going to be different. Now the front ones, we're keeping it simple. Okay, it is on the y-axis, but not always. Okay? All right, example 1. Here we go. What's my vertex? What is a vertex? Highest or lowest point. Okay, so here's my vertex, the lowest point. And I write the vertex as an ordered pair. Well, what is this ordered pair? 0, -3. This is a maximum or a minimum? Minimum. It's at the bottom. I'm just going to write MIN for minimum for short. It's at the bottom, so it's a minimum. Roots means x-intercept. Now, for today, we're just going to kind of guesstimate. Later in this unit, I'm going to show you how to exactly find the decimal, but right now, we're just going to say, if it's in between, we're going to say 0.5. So I'm going to say this is -1.5, 0, and +1.5, 0. Okay, right now we're just going to guesstimate if it's a decimal. Later, I'll show you how to find exact. Okay. My axis of symmetry. Remember, I wanted my entertainment center to be symmetrical, so it's got to go through the middle. Okay. So right through the middle of the graph is here. And this is going to be x equals. And where does it cross the x-axis number line? 0. Okay, a trick. Your axis of symmetry, the x equals, okay, is always the same x as your vertex, because your vertex is always in the middle. Okay, let's say that again. Your axis of symmetry, the x equals a number, is always going to be the same number in the x spot of your vertex. Okay? All right, number 2. My vertex is what? The highest or the lowest point, right there. And this ordered pair is 0, 2. This is a maximum or a minimum point? Maximum. I'm going to write MAX for short. My roots, or my x-intercepts, we'll put dots on them because it's a decimal. I'm just going to guesstimate. -1.5, 0, and +1.5, 0. They just happen to be the same as the first one. My axis of symmetry, its x is, so it's got to be x equals. Where does it go through the middle of the graph at? X equals 0. Make sure you're paying attention. Okay. The back says, what are the differences you notice between the equations from example 1 and example 2? So look at example 1 and 2. First of all, let me just ask, what's different about the graphs? They're flipped. What does that mean? One opens up, one opens down. Good job. Okay, so what do you think is causing this? What?
On the x.
The x. Okay, your x is positive, so your graph is going up. So everybody see that? It's going up into the positive numbers. All right. This one, your x is negative, so what's happening? Now your graph is going down into the negatives. Everybody see that? Positive x turns my graph up, going in a positive direction. Negative x turns my graph down, going into a negative direction. So on the back, it says, what differences do you notice? So a positive x squared opens the graph up. Negative x squared opens the graph down. Okay, and that kind of answers the next question here. How do the differences affect the graph? It opens it up or it opens it down. Did you write that? Okay, number 3. Using the graph below, answer the following question. Okay, what is the vertex? Okay, well, what is vertex? The lowest or highest, but this one is the lowest. And what's that ordered pair? Come on, guys, wake up. Good. -1, -9. Ordered pair. Is it a maximum or a minimum? Minimum. It's at the bottom. What is the line of symmetry? Okay, goes through the exact middle of my U. Remember I told you it's x equals the x spot of the vertex, which is -1. Or you can say it goes through the -1 on the x-axis. What is my y-intercept? Okay, so 0, -8. What are the x-intercepts?
That's -1.
So it crosses the y-intercept at -8. It goes up 1.
Oh.
When it's at -9, it's at -1 on the x, so that wouldn't be here. Okay, my x-intercepts are negative, what is this one? 4 and +2. So -4, 0 and +2, 0. So all this kind of stuff should be reviewed. Your x and your y-intercepts. Okay. All right, letter F is a little bit different. All right, what is the best estimate for the positive value of x? So x has to be a what type of number? Positive. Am I looking for a negative? No. Okay, look up here because you're going to have to do some of these on your homework. So what is the best estimate of the positive value of x for which the function equals -5? What's function mean? Equation. How do you start an equation? Y equals. So y equals -5. If I have y equals a number, what type of line do I have? A Hoy line, horizontal. So I'm going to go draw a line horizontally through -5. Okay, you with me? Questions? Okay. Then, what's the question asking for? The positive what? The positive value of x. Okay, so when y is 5, your x is -3. Does everybody see that? -3, -5, or +1, -5. Okay, on this line, your U shape crosses y equals -5 at -3 and +1. I want the positive x. What is my x going to equal? 1. X equals 1. Okay, one more. Why is this graph different? Does it show the full U shape?
No.
No. Okay, so that's the difference here. Okay, it cuts the graph off. Now, does this stop right here? No.
Keep going.
It keeps going, but it's only showing you part of the graph. Okay, so this U shape would technically be continue going this way. Okay, you just can't see that part of the graph. It's not showing it to you. All right, so it says, what is the maximum point? Again, we're going to guesstimate on decimals. So here's my maximum point. And it's a point, so it needs an ordered pair. What's the x? At this dot, what's my x? 4. And about, what's my y? I would say 125, yep. So there's my maximum point. Then it says, what is my axis of symmetry? So it has to be x equals Okay, x equals, and where does it?
4.
Yes, 4. Okay, crosses my x-axis at 4. Or you can say it's the same as the x in the vertex. What is my y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? About, it's right under 50. So I would say about 49 or 48. So let's say 48, 0. If you were to say 50, I said that's okay. Okay, if it was your homework.
It's the y. Yeah, you put the x.
Oh, you're right. Good job. Good catch. Okay, so I switched my number, so it should be 0, 48. Okay, what are my x-intercepts? So how many can you see? 1, but how many are there? 2. Okay, so what's the one that you can see? 9. So 9, 0. And can I see the other one? No. Can I find it? What do we know about, what do I know about my axis of symmetry? Where does it go? Through the middle, right? Hold on. How are you getting -1, Ethan? Okay, so I know my axis of symmetry goes right through the middle, right? So if this dot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away from the axis of symmetry, right? And the other side has to be the exact same. How many jumps would I need to make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at 5 jumps, what would my dot be? A -1. So -1, 0. Okay, F says, what is the best estimate of the largest value of x? So which one do I want? The biggest, x, for which the function equals 80. So y equals 80. What type of line do I have for y equals a number? Hoy. So I'm going to go to 80. I'm going to draw my Hoy line. All right, what's my biggest x? Well, I have 2 of them. I have an x at 1 and an x at 7. And I got my largest x, which is x equals 7. Questions? No, it's not time to go on yet. Any questions on this?